Graduate student at Michigan State University in the United States. In my free time, I like to uh, browse the top scientific journals on the internet and try to understand the latest scientific discoveries by looking at the cool graphs that are published in scientific literature. And yeah, if this is your first time seeing one of my videos, please take a moment to follow my Twitch channel or subscribe to my YouTube channel, Miles Does Science. It's easy, it's free, and you can always unsubscribe later if you want to. So if you take a moment to do that, I'd greatly appreciate it. Anyway, though, enough of that yammering. To start us off today, I've been thinking a lot about climate change recently, especially with the strong wildfires that are occurring in the western United States. So I thought I would begin by looking at a cool paper about climate change. I haven't read this paper before. This is the first time I've seen it. And I'm going to try to figure out what exactly these scientists discovered by looking at the cool graphs and pretty graphs that they published in their paper. So you can tell by the title, this paper is about sea level rise and causes of sea level rise. So let's try to figure out what these guys found. It was good to start with some line plots, time series, and here on the x-axis, and then some acronym on the y-axis. I'm going to guess this means like global mean sea level, something like that. Doesn't say down here, but it's probably something to do with mean sea level. After all, this is a paper about sea level rise. Let's see. So we have different colors of lines that refer to, looks like, different measurements of sea level, observed sea level versus sum of some measurements, barostatic and thermosteric measurements of sea level rise. I'm not entirely sure what those measures are, but either way, it's pretty clear that they're all increasing over time from 1900 to looks like 2010, something like that. And then over here we have, looks like it's split up by, here we have sea level rise split up by cause, possibly. So starting with, looks like purple is glaciers, red is barostatic, not sure what that is, brown is Greenland ice sheet melting, pink is Antarctic ice sheet melting, groundwater depletion with the dotted gray line, natural TWS, not sure what that is, and then dam impoundment. So kind of surprising that the Antarctic ice sheet doesn't seem to be contributing that much, perhaps that's what it means. But can see how a couple of other measures of sea level rise or causes are increasing over time. And then let's see, global mean sea level trend in millimeters per year. Here again we have, looks like the same four lines as this plot right here. Now we see these interesting, like, decades-long cycles in sea level rise. That's pretty interesting. I wasn't aware that sea levels underwent like decades-long cycles. Figured that they underwent yearly cycles, just with seasonal variation, but this is a really big trough right here. I assume this is like, to get the black line, you like add up the three other lines to get the black line, perhaps. And then, okay, yeah, shaded regions are 90% confidence intervals. So scientists are 90% confident that this line traces out a path somewhere in this shaded red region. What is barystatic? Barystatic. Static. There we go. Whenever I don't understand a term in a scientific paper, I just Google it. And 9 times out of 10, there's a Wikipedia page for it. Let's say versus thermosteric. Immediately. Let's just papers for later. Let's just go ahead and try another figure. If anyone knows what the difference between those two terms are, feel free to let me know. Well, I don't think anyone's in the chat or anything, but I'm just speaking into the ether, into the void. Figure 2, more awesome line graphs. Okay. Of the 4-year average summer rate explained by each contributor. So, I guess in other words, fraction of sea level rise that's explained by each of these sea level rise causes. Looks like contributions of, looks like the Antarctic ice sheet melting stays steady at around 0 across these years, which is really surprising to me. I'd figure that like melting of the ice sheet in Antarctica would be like one of the main contributors. And just based on all of, like the nature documentaries I've seen. So that's interesting. If I'm interpreting this graph correctly, that is. Then glacier, the contribution of glaciers seems to be declining over time. Perhaps because they're melting over time, and therefore they can't contribute as much to raising sea levels. It's just a guess. I have very little experience in climate science, by the way, so that's why I'm reading this to try to figure some of this stuff out. Interesting spike in contribution of this, whatever this thermosteric cause is, around 1970, and a large dip in barystatic around the same time. Interesting. I'm not sure what TWS is. TWS. The total world sea level? No, that doesn't make sense. I should just look at the paper and figure it out. That's interesting that some causes, the contribution of some causes seems to be steady over the years, while others are increasing, others are decreasing. It's interesting. Let's see if, let's do a quick search of the page for thermosteric. See if they define it somewhere. Here we go. Changes in sea level due to global thermal expansion from in situ subsurface observations. So I think by global thermal expansion, they mean that as water warms up, it actually expands a little bit. You can think of how if you boil water, a tiny volume of liquid water when boiled turns into a very large volume of steam. So, in other words, because heating up water can increase the amount of volume it takes up. And even, I guess, even small changes in the temperature of water can cause it to expand a little bit. And when you take that small change, sum it over the entire ocean, and you can get a measurable increase in sea level. Let's see. The static. This is another way to figure out the definition of terms that you don't know in scientific papers. Just do a quick search page for the first instance when the authors use the word, and they'll typically define it when they first use it. If it's some kind of scientific jargon you've never heard, never heard before. Changes in global ocean mass. Okay. Combine estimates. Glaciers, ice sheets, terrestrial water. Okay, so various static changes. Those are like the effects of melting ice and just releasing more water into the ocean. And TWS is terrestrial water storage. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. Let's see here, I'm going to do it on time. I don't want to spend an entire stream on this one paper. We'll look at, let's see, I don't really want to look at that figure because that's just like a flow map. But some cool global maps. Let's see here. Well, those are all extended data figures. I'll look at a main figure. Okay, I'll just look at this last one. Observed basin means sea level and contributing process. Okay, so again, we have year versus global mean sea level, and let's see what the different colors mean. So green is GIA, some other term I haven't heard before, while red is ocean mass, so the mass of water in all of Earth's oceans. And then dark blue is observed sea level rise. Yeah. Orange is steric. So I guess that's referring to the thermosteric contributions to sea level rise, like expanding water when you heat it up. Looks like I didn't have data available for the entire time series, so we have the line segments. But you can definitely see how global sea level rise, how the global mean sea level just keeps increasing over the years. These interesting little, looks like yearly fluctuations in sea level rise, which I guess isn't too surprising, just with like seasonal variation. Split up by region of the globe, looks like. This is a very cute pixelated map of the Earth. It's almost in like 8-bit. Although I guess the continents are better defined. So it looks like off the coast of, let's see, test my geography skills, Japan and China and Russia. See here, steric contributions are more important, whereas, see here, oh no, those are just colored, but those are just the region colors. Those are just showing which regions go with which of these line graphs. Yeah, you can see the gist of it is that ocean levels are increasing. It looks like these steric contributors are very important. I don't know what GIA means. Let's figure that out. Glacial isostatic adjustment. Um, Still not sure what that means. That fails. Probably check it out on Wikipedia. Post-glacial rebound. Rise of land masses after the removal of the huge weight of ice sheets during the last glacial period. Ooh, that's interesting. Here we go. Okay, so glacial isostatic adjustment means the same thing as post-glacial rebound. So when ice melts off of some land mass, that land mass can rise a little bit because it's not being weighed down by massive amounts of ice. That's pretty interesting. Recognition that the response of the Earth to glacial loading and unloading is not limited to the upward rebound movement, but also involves downward land movement, horizontal crustal motion. Okay, interesting. That was a pretty neat paper. So let's see, what are their conclusions? The relative contributions of thermospheric and barostatic changes to global mean sea level rise vary with time. On basin scales, trends and multi-decadal variability deviate from the global mean mostly as a result of variability in the steric component. So that's pretty interesting. I wonder why exactly the contributions of these different changes vary with time. I guess it would kind of make sense for barostatic changes, which are just ice melting into the ocean. You'd expect that over time, as more ice melts, there is less ice available to melt and contribute to sea level rise. So I guess I would be expecting the barostatic changes to decline, the contribution of barostatic changes to decline over time. Just kind of what we saw in this plot over here. But that's just like a guess. I'm not entirely sure. Climate science is definitely not something I've studied in much depth. But it's fascinating though. Alright, so to stick with the theme today, I also found this interesting paper about wildfires in the Mediterranean Basin. Seems like wildfires are getting more and more severe every year around the world. I'm honestly surprised there are still trees left to burn down, especially after last year. Like I feel like we shouldn't have wildfires anymore because like all of Australia went up in flames, as well as California and Washington as well. It's just I'm just surprised there's still trees left to burn. But let's try to figure this out. So I should have read the title actually. Oh, here it is anyway. Increased likelihood of heat-induced large wildfires in the Mediterranean Basin. So I assume that's referring to how heat is inducing large wildfires more often as the world warms up due to climate change. At least in the Mediterranean Basin, which the authors studied. See, I'm pretty terrible with geography, so let's get a map of the basin. Okay, so it looks like it's around Italy, and Greece, and just north of Africa. Okay, it's just the Mediterranean Sea. Okay. So right off the bat, we have some nice principal component analysis plots. These are kind of complicated. I only kind of vaguely understand them. Like the gist of these PCA plots is to take take a multi-dimensional data set, so a data set with more than two variables, such as this data set with 5 variables: temperature, Duff moisture, drought code, wind speed, and relative air humidity, and you collapse that data set into just 2 variables or 2 axes of variation, depending on, and use some statistics and math to do that. Just a way of kind of reducing the complexity of your data set, putting it into a form you can actually visualize and see clusters in. So looks like they included these 5 variables in their principal component analysis, and they're showing the first the 2 principal components that explain the most variation in their data. So I'm not sure what each of these is. Are each of these points like a different wildfire? Wildfire niche shown in terms of 2 orthogonal combinations of weather and climate variables determined by PCA. Okay, so I think each dot is a wildfire record. Okay. Okay. You can see how moving in this direction, I assume these arrows mean like points moving in this direction, sort of associated with greater wind speeds. Points further in this direction are associated with greater temperature. Here they're showing the density of voxels. Let's see, what's a voxel? I've heard that term before. The thing of voxel is like some kind of 3-dimensional something or other. Man, I don't know. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, 3-dimensional grid. I vaguely knew what I was talking about. Okay, so a voxel represents a value on a regular grid in 3-dimensional space. Okay. And so it took some 3-dimensional space, collapsed it into 2 dimensions, and then they colored these points based on the density of those voxels. Not entirely sure how to interpret that. And they circled unfavorable weather conditions here. What does that mean? Okay, so unfavorable weather conditions correspond to voxels in which wildfires are unlikely to occur as conditions are moister. Moister? Man, that's an awkward word. Are moister and cooler than those observed in the wildfire niche. Okay, so they mean unfavorable for for unfavorable to start wildfires. I thought they meant like these conditions are unfavorable because they cause wildfires, but they mean the opposite. Points that fall in combinations of climate conditions that fall within this wildfire niche are very likely to cause wildfires, which is interesting. See, how am I doing on time? These streams are like 30 minutes or something. Try not get, no need to get crazy, you know. Okay. Sorry, just wanted to check on the time in my streaming software. I've been using I'm super new to streaming, so I've been using like the beta software that Twitch has self-produced, and I don't really know if that's the best software to use. I'm looking into alternatives, but if anyone has suggestions, like leave a comment or something, and I'll check it out. Greatly appreciate a suggestion so that I don't spend hours fooling around with software that I don't like. Alright, so let's try to figure this out. Have some beautiful, beautiful line plots. On the time, okay, so x-axis is time, and then day 0 is when a fire starts. Okay, so it's like these different colors of lines are of different types of wildfires. Or okay, different fire weather types. Can see that fire weather or fires that are caused by heat waves and hot drought tend to occur after in correspondence with increases in temperature. No surprise there. And see here, relative humidity. Okay, so also wildfires that are caused by heat waves and hot drought occur with sudden declines in relative humidity. Makes sense. More heat, less moisture. Something, or then trees will be more likely to catch fire. That makes sense. Then we have wind-driven fires. What exactly does that mean? What is a wind-driven fire? When I think of like wind-driven fires, I think like, okay, there is a fire going on in some other location, and then wind will pick up like burning embers or something and carry those to a different location to start a fire, which is interesting. You see that wind-driven fires correlate with increases in wind speed. No real surprises there. I don't know what the Duff moisture code is. I assume there's no relation to Duff beer from The Simpsons, but who knows? The Duff moisture code sounds like some kind of quality control measure that that The Simpsons would have on Duff beer. Let's look that up. The Duff moisture code. Duff moisture code. Probably just named after some guy named Duff. No clear definition. Definition. Oh, it's right here. Fire Weather Index System. Government website. Let's see here. Duff moisture code represents fuel moisture of decomposed organic material. Okay. Okay. So just how moist any organic material is that could possibly catch fire. So heat-driven, all these different kinds of wildfires are correlated with sudden increases in the Duff moisture code and increases in the drought code. Now we have risk ratio versus fire size, and then our 4 different types. So it looks like risk ratios are higher for these heat-driven fire types, but low for these normal fire types, whatever that means. Not sure what that means, just like natural or something like that, not caused by climate change. I'm not sure. Let's look at risk ratios really quick. Sure, there's a Wikipedia on it. Yeah, here we go. Relative risk. I hear about this a lot in like medical studies. The ratio of the probability of an outcome in an exposed group to the probability of an outcome in the unexposed group. So you take, I guess you take, like in this case, the probability of a wildfire reaching a certain size in heat-induced fires relative to some other group. And you can see that I'm not sure. Fire size risk ratio. I think the interpretation is that it's just that, again, larger fires are more likely to happen when the fires are heat-induced. And then looks like the frequency of the different fire types or fire causes varies by country. Interesting. So Tunisia has lots of heat-driven, heat-induced fire types. All right, look at one more figure, then we'll call it enough climate change learning for the day. Okay. Figure 3. This looks cool. A little nice map. Okay. So now we have drought and heat wave. Okay, so it looks like we have different colored maps. Mediterranean Basin, and let's see how we colored, excuse me. Okay, so looks like they're colored by frequency of wildfire type. So darker colored pixels are regions where this certain type of wildfire cause is more common. Or perhaps more likely. Let's see here. Okay, so this is like historical data. In here, they're modeling what will happen in the future. Interesting. So it looks like, as you might expect, heat-induced wildfires are going to become more common in... Oh, interesting. Looks like they'll be... Are they moving northward? Oh, no. So yeah, heat-induced wildfires are going to become more common in the Mediterranean Basin over time, especially towards the end of the century. I mean, if we make it that long anyway. I think like humanity only has like 10 years to get their act together before we all die from climate change. Just being totally honest. Looks like wind-driven wildfires aren't becoming more common that much. Maybe slightly more. I don't know what these normal plus and normal minus types are. And then there are large drops in unfavorable wildfire conditions. which is not good, at least in these kind of northern parts of the Mediterranean basin. I didn't know that the Mediterranean had that many wildfires. I just never thought of the basin as. Well, I obviously don't live there, so I don't know much about the area. What are these black dots mean? Lots of black dots. Showing relative to the present period, the dots indicate grid cells where the change was statistically significant. Okay, the majority of models. Okay, so I see. So the dots with, or the cells with dots show areas with detectable changes in wildfire frequency. Interesting. So yeah, we're all gonna die. We're doomed. And yeah, hug your loved ones, and you know, recycle, and do your part to help stop climate change. I guess that's the theme of today. Um, but anyway, if you made it this far, thank you very much for watching. I plan to stream again tomorrow at around 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So if you want, feel free to join me on my Twitch channel, Miles Does Science. If you don't, I'll just export the video to YouTube later so you can catch up there as well. Anyway, thank you very much. Have a good rest of your day.